All right, here we are in Chasing Squirrels Lab. I am talking today with Aviva Dunziger, and Aviva came to my attention through Twitter, where I was able to see a pretty amazing array of assessment captures. And I wondered to myself, what were all the ed tech tools that she and her team were using in order to notice learning? Because the still life photos and some of the videos, I thought to myself, there's some real deep skill here in noticing small moments as important developmental kind of stages of learning. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Aviva. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic. Could you give us
here and to talk about?
I know. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, to talk in person to you, I'm very passionate about. I love looking at different assessment tools and exploring different ways to assess student learning.
So can you speak a little bit to, I guess on the front end, the collection of tools that that sort of feed your point of view, that allow you to see the learning? How you putting those pieces together?
Well, so one of the biggest things for me and for my partner as well is we spent a lot of time before school even started really reading and discussing the new kindergarten program document. Understanding of not just the expectations, but the front matter and the pedagogy really behind the document and what it was that we were trying to get at within the document within our classroom. So really when we were planning really with the document in mind and looking at those kinds of ideas. And then for us right now, it was kind of looking at the idea that is that you see what the students are doing and you make the link between their interests and the things that they are doing within the classroom to the expectations. So instead of planning with the overall expectations in mind or even specific ones in mind, we're really looking at what the students are already doing and noticing and naming the learning. And so with part of that, it means that we are really spending our entire day watching, talking with, questioning, and spending time with kids. And those, that really is the only way to notice all those. You really have to insert yourself into the play. And somewhere students really see us in it, where we might sit down with a group, very noticeably watch what they're saying, listen to them, and then maybe ask some questions to extend that learning. And sometimes that's done kind of quietly, which I find happens a lot out in our forest area that we're lucky enough to have, where often we will almost like speak up behind the learning that's already taking place so that we can watch it as it unfolds. And so it's not about them performing for us, it's really watching. And distance to start, and then we kind of get closer, and with the closer might intervene with those questions and comments to kind of extend that learning. So I often find the kinds of things that I share on Instagram or on Twitter are a combination of the things that my teaching partner are often things that we started by observing that situation for a while before we actually went closer and captured that learning and possibly extended it with the use of questioning.
I gotta say, I highly recommend, anyone that is listening to this podcast or comes across your posts, to spend time just looking at the details of the picture. And I wondered when I was looking at some of those images, and I communicated part of this too online, that whole observing without changing. So being able to capture media without it sort of moving into kind of selfie mentality, where the kids are aware that there's someone capturing their assessment. And I was struck by the fact that it seems like your students are very comfortable with you existing in this space. And I extend that to think that if they're comfortable with the method of, I just had this image of you sort of sneaking through the woods to sort of get a picture of them making a stick sculpture, or negotiating the angles of a tree branch, and that's mathematics. That you is. I can see the triangle as you talk about it. And I can just imagine they're like, oh, there's Miss Dunziger, yeah, she's doing her thing. Let her do her thing.
Yeah.
How do you and let's say your teaching partner reflect on that, as in, trying to keep a little bit of that neutrality?
Yeah. So that was something at the was something that the kids weren't necessarily used to, and it seemed a little bit more like a performance when the camera was there, right, or the iPad was out and the pictures were being taken or the video was being recorded. And now they are kind of accustomed to it. Sometimes students will call us over. So they'll say, Miss Dunziger, can you come and see this? And they'll even tell me, like, I'd like you to take a picture of this, or I want you to take a video of this. So they'll even kind of communicate what it is that they're looking for. I think the key with that neutrality it a little bit longer. So it becomes we start to ask the questions, insert our ideas, ask them to do something. And I even find sometimes these great moments happen and I haven't recorded it. And then sometimes I'll ask them to go back again and try to explain it. And that's when it all kind of falls apart. And it never sounds quite as good the second time around as it was the first. And both my teaching partner and I, we talk about that a lot on, we just captured it the first time. It sounded perfect. We asked them to go back and kind of review. It doesn't have that same kind of authentic feel to it, but it's hard to know because there are moments where I find like I'm leading with that picture, that video. I'm going over thinking, yeah, this is, and then there's other times that I just kind of immerse myself and I think afterwards, I kind of wish I did capture that because it showed such a great moment of, the child demonstrating this skill or persevering or problem solving, and it would have. And that often, to be honest with you, is when I do things like the pic collage where I might write up the dialogue, even without a picture or with maybe not the best of pictures to go, because I really wanted to capture that moment, even though I wasn't able to maybe capture it at the time. And my teaching partner and I, we spend a lot of time with each other. And at the end of the day, we probably spend close to an hour, if not longer, kind of going back and reviewing the kinds of discussions that one person saw and the other person didn't. And sometimes she'll even tell me a story and she hasn't necessarily written it up, but I might write it up afterwards and even include it in the daily post because I thought it was something that was really interesting and I thought really captured a specific skill or kind of moved something that maybe we were doing for a specific inquiry along. And I might write it up then, even though I wasn't the one that observed it, but just based on our discussion. So it is, part of it is that back and forth discussion with each other about how to, about how we didn't necessarily capture it.
As I was curious about what the sort of reflective practice that comes out of that, and I believe me, I've tried to take enough pictures. It's walking on the scene of my own children and they're doing something. I'm like, I'm reaching for the camera, and then it's like, could you just climb that tree again and kind of do that really natural, happy face that you were doing, because it really gave me the good feels. And then it's, no one's going to see this on the video podcast, but the smile is a little bit like, and they just can't capture the moment. They're like, okay, I'm gonna go hide in the bushes and try and get that photo again. When you're capturing, or when you're, I guess it goes into that curation form, as in when you're giving the write up on it. Or I see your students sometimes as well will include their own writing pieces in the images and the creations that they make. What is this discussion, and this could be with your students as well, or your teaching partner, what's the discussion like about the audience that's on the other side of that? So that discussion about the importance of sharing and who's getting it, who's it going to?
So I have a number of parents that will follow my Twitter account during the day. So they are going out throughout the day. Some students know that. So sometimes our students make choices about the kinds of things that they want to share because they know that their mom or dad is kind of watching and seeing the stuff going out. We have one child that does his own pic collages. He seems to be the one that does them chosen a specific background for his collages because he's told his mom to look for that background. So he said that if she sees that background, then she knows that it's his collage. And he's told us not to use the background so that his mom doesn't get confused. So he's been very vocal on that. And it's been a big inspiration for him to write because he was not a very big writer at the beginning of the year. This is something that he really kind of now he's looking in terms of that audience. For him, it is really all about his mother. Sometimes the kinds of feedback, though, that we get from other educators, we have shared with our students some of the things that educators have said in response to a video, a piece of information or something that we've shared. So students kind of feel special that the stuff that they're sharing is out there and that other people are seeing. We're also cognizant in terms of the audience as well. So we like to look at the documentation not as a way of evaluating, capturing the learning that's happening. So of celebrating what students are doing and to either extend that learning, to deal with a specific mini lesson, to address a specific topic or where our next step might be. I will sometimes capture earlier in the day and not share it into later because sometimes we'll talk and say, how do we feel about putting this out there? How are people going to respond to it? Is this something that people are going to have a problem with? And if we find that it could be questionable, then sometimes that's something I might just email to a specific parent, but not necessarily share on social media. So, or I might take out a piece of it. So that's what I did the other day. I shared a piece of what a student had done. Quite remarkable, but there was another piece of that while I was really proud of what he did, I wasn't sure how others would respond to what he had written. So I chose to take out that piece before sharing it. On social media, I just shared part of what he did, not the whole thing. And then I shared with the parent the whole thing. So the parent got to see everything, but others got to see a piece because I really thought that his growth was remarkable and was something worth celebrating, but that I needed to be aware of the audience that was looking at his work.
I love the bit of the student with his signature background. I was talking with a student just before we left for the weekend, and the student makes music, and he makes a lot of electronic music, and he was talking about how often electronic musicians will have some sort of a signature. It's either a drop or a build or a certain bass line that they constantly will somehow weave it into there. So it's kind of like individuals that are in the know, if they never actually see the name on there, they'll hear it and they're like, I know who that is, or I know who influenced that. So I totally get what that kid is saying. Like, only use my Paisley backdrop because that's the one my parents are going to see right away. I also dig the idea of anonymity, as in you could use a lot more of their stuff and not necessarily have to put their name on it. It could just be the work.
Yeah, and piece is important. So I will sometimes, some parents have asked for me to use the full name of their child, largely because they're searching through a bunch of documentation, a blog post at the end of the day, and they find it easier to just view it. So often if I use the name of the child, it's because a parent has actually said to me, could you use that name? Because if I see their name in the tweet or in the picture, then I know to look at it or look at the video or, take a closer peek. I don't have time to go through everything. I appreciate that, and so I do that. Often I use just first initials because I know the child myself, but not everybody else has to know them. And so the initial piece will help. Sometimes I just write the discussion without using the name or an initial because I can see enough of the picture of the child to know who that child is. The parent can see enough of the picture of the child to know who that child is, and nobody else really needs to know who the child is. And often if I use the actual name of the student, it would be without a picture of that child that's there. So it might be, sometimes I'll write down a conversation as we're, as people are sharing ideas. Instead of recording a video, I might write down what each individual child shared. In this case, there's no picture to go with it. there. But it is kind of balancing all and keeping into account the idea that, we are dealing with younger students. We want to make sure that we're being safe online and that we're making everybody, teachers, students, parents, happy with the option. And the same goes that if I start to record, say, a video the child's doing, and the child says, I'd rather you not record that, and sometimes they will, I respect that too, and I stop the recording. Or I might ask why, and they might say, I don't want my mom to see that because I'm making this present or doing that. We'll say, oh, well, could I keep that part for me but not share it on our blog? And they'll say yes. So I try to listen to that feedback that comes too, because those students will share, even though they're younger, kinds of things that they want shared, but they also speak out if there's something that they don't want.
That's awesome. That's pretty awesome. So just before we wrap up, there will be individuals thinking to themselves, I want to step into this zone. I want to give this a try. And there'll be a number of different sort of motivators for an educator to test the waters of digital capture within the classroom. I am gobsmacked at the depth of the planning that you have done to come into this. Your sort of understanding, your lead talking about making sure we understand the curriculum inside and out so that we know we have given ourselves the proper pre-knowledge for the look fors. You're going in looking for these moments, and that's a powerful thing. It's not happenstance, it's not accidental. You're hunting for learning and moments of curiosity, which is awesome. So let's say someone else is in that exact same mode. They have read the document, but they need just a little bit of a nudge to sort of take that next step. For you, when you look at the body of work that you now have with these students and the work that the student has produced, what is it that you notice about the value of this? What is it? What is it that kind of motivates you to just go right back? Because it's a lot of work. You do a lot of work to capture this learning. What do you think is the thing that will motivate a teacher just about to give it a try? What would you say to them?
Well, I think one of the things that I think is one of the biggest motivators is that as educators, we're always worried about seeing growth in students. That growth, how do we know that our children are learning? And when we really have this accumulation of work and work that's been captured in so many different ways, so that it's not always about the handwritten thing, it's not always about the book that's read, but it is, reading, it is writing, it is communicating. All of a sudden we start to see this massive growth because we can go back to that learning that happened before, and we can even show students that. So we have children now that are really starting to reflect on, oh, I remember at the beginning of the year where I wouldn't even write hold the pencil and write, and now I'm writing full sentences, I'm writing stories, right? So then when an administrator says to me, well, okay, fine, you know what, you've embraced the learning that comes with it, but how do you know that your children are learning? Mm-hmm. I can say, well, we can go back and we can look at that same child back in September to now, and I see that child that wouldn't even write their mom's name now helping another student learn how to, that just sound that they hear at beginning of the word is a CH. So we've got this, like, I won't write down an M to now supporting another child in their learning. And so I think that for me, one of the biggest motivators is that the time is worth it, because you really do get that picture, that image of the child, that growth of the child, and really being able to from there determine that next step. And that's hard to capture in just a work product, right? Like we think of like that whole, we think of growing success, we think of the triangulation of data, right? It's product, but often when we take out that digital piece, a lot of what we're left with seems to be that work product. Like, how do we know all the thinking that went behind that rough draft? Where now, it really isn't just about the product. It is really that whole process of learning. And this really helps capture that process. It helps capture those conversations. It helps capture the little ways that that child has demonstrated learning in the different environments. So that student that a risk inside the classroom is taking a risk outside. They are problem solving outside, even though they may not be problem solving inside. So then for us, the next question can be, okay, so how do we help then transfer some of that knowledge from what's happening outside into the classroom? What can we do to support that learning, right? So it's powerful for our conversations as educators. It's also powerful for parents to be able to see, and it's powerful for kids to be able to see the difference that they've made.
It's awesome. It really is. I fully appreciate the time and the detail and the reflection, and also the reciprocity here, where it strikes me that you have a team that's kind of helping you move through these, and that's good to have that sort of like critical partner that can kind of say, are we on the right track? Are we still doing what we intended with these assessment tools? Are we still connecting with the audience that we hope to? Are the kids still getting this stuff? Because I think also some of the conversations we find ourselves in and using digital tech is that it is the end game, but it's not. It's one of the tools right now that we can use. And what I love, I just keep coming back to this, is that you are so clear. You are so clear on the motivation, the method, and the product that comes out of it. And I hope I get 1,000 clicks or likes on this one, because really there are some kind of unicorns that we have in using EdTech that we kind of get it. We hope it's sort of we're on the right track with it. We hope that we're using it the right way. And conversations like this, I think, will motivate some people to go, yeah, this is where we are. This is where we are. Because they see a full day kindergarten user, they're like, oh, I'm in like a grade 9 teacher, and I've got this well thought out plan being given to me for free by a kindergarten instructor that has obviously made the plans to make it happen. So this is absolutely wonderful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So where would you like people to find you? I'm hoping tons of people start, knocking down your Twitter door and saying, I want to find out more. I want to know a little bit deeper with this. Where would you like to be found?
Well, probably the best, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at IVALOCA, or my professional blog is adunsiger, DUNSIGER.com.
This is awesome. That's all I got. You've wowed me. No, this was very cool. Very cool. You've set another little fire in me. I got to find a way. I don't have my program doesn't allow for the same. I wish we could go outside more. But my program for another day, it's just we tend to be just in the class. But I think I'm going to be relensing a little bit, because I do have some parents that do want to see what the kids are doing during the day. They fully appreciate that kind of documentation for sure. So I hope you have a fantastic remaining of the weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for giving your time back to me again.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for the discussion.
And I look forward to the next time we meet.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.